I've no carrots at the minute. This is my other type of horsepower. Well, actually, it's not mine, it's my daughter's. Folks, this isn't a normal sort of vlog you're about to watch now. In fact, I went out just to do these tests, just to test the new Osmo Action 3 and the DJI Mic plugged into the side, just to try and find the sweet spot in terms of picture formats, audio levels, and any other little findings I could see along the way. So I spoke as voice idents on all the little clips you're about to watch along the way, just for myself to come back and look back at this stuff on the computer and learn basically for what the best settings would be to go out and make all my future videos. So like I say, this was never meant to be one of my traditional motor vlogs, which is why I'm putting this out midweek. This was like never going to be sitting on the shelf for part of my standard lineup every Saturday morning. So it was only when I got back into the edit and started looking through the clips, I thought, well, somebody somewhere might take some sort of value from this, and I hope you don't mind me sharing my knowledge. It's very techy, it's very nerdy, it's obviously what I'm into, but yeah, somebody out there might actually learn a thing or two, so sit back and enjoy. Actually, I should say, on that note, it's not all bad, because there's some fabulous Irish scenery, as normal, in most of my vlogs, which you can sit and enjoy if you're not really into the tech stuff. Maybe still give it a gander. I'll come back to you at the end of this video and I'll tell you exactly what my findings were and what my favorite settings are within this new setup. Okay, we've just got a little traffic jam here. I must check what lens setting I'm in. I am in 4K 60 and I'm testing the microphone, which is -12 on the receiver, -12 on the transmitter, and we have bass cut on. Colour is normal. Actually, I'm saying all that, I must check all of the colour because it looks very blue on the back of the screen here. I'm watching the little microphone indicator on the back of the camera screen as well. Not quite in red yet, which is good. I've got the visor open on my noisiest helmet, which is the Scorpion ADX1. Picture looks beautiful, actually. I hope it's not too saturated. There's Morris. So we shall stop wherever I can and just check the colours on the camera. In fact, why don't I stop here? This was a popular spot when I stopped here in lockdown. I'm just going to switch off for a second, and I might have to cut recording here because I'm not sure I can. Yeah, I'm going to have to cut recording. Apologies. So yes, the angle was at ultra wide. The colour is in normal. Seems very saturated, I'll be honest, on the back of the screen, and this is the brightest day because when I actually went out and made the video the other day using this system, it wasn't as bright as this, so I hope that saturation isn't going to be a problem. I'm in 4K 60 and really bad junction that with that overhanging tree. So I'm in 4K 60. Want to get a bit of wind up. I've got the visor open. Sound like I'm burping a baby. I'm trying to get a bit of wind up. And this is really to test the audio as well as the picture, to try and find the ultimate setting for this wonderful new system. I have to say, I thought the ultra wide on the BMW, because I don't know if you saw the previous test that I did, it was on the RS660, which is a sports bike, of course, and I'm leaning forward quite a bit. And I thought it was great to get both the wing mirrors and the handlebars in on that shot. But I thought sitting upright like I am on the GS now, I thought ultra wide was actually going to be far too wide. But looking at the back of the screen here, I'm thinking it's just about right. It doesn't seem too wide at all. And I quite like the fact that you can see a little bit of the tank as well as the dashboard. I just hope this scenery isn't too distorted. So a couple of concerns so far before I get back into the edit about this setting is that I hope the picture's not too saturated. I hope the sound isn't too tinny or even distorted, because it's wound down to rock bottom on the level, and the base cut is on. And the other thing is, I hope the picture's not too distorted either. So we'll follow the usual route here, and I'll stop somewhere up here to change the settings. Somebody out fishing on that lake. I'd love to get a kayak in that lake. Now, the microphone itself, the DJI actual mic, the transmitter part of it, is mounted by magnet to the, you know, that little bit of mesh which goes like underneath your chin to stop the updraft coming up into the helmet. It's mounted inside that with the magnet on the outside holding it in place. I'll be honest, it's not the strongest fix, but for today's tests I'm sure it'll do. Famous last words. If you hear me going mute and you can't hear any audio for the rest of this take, you know exactly what's happened. Okay, I'll pull in here. It's a good place to stop and change the settings. I think we have long enough on that one. So that was 4K 60. Okay, first of all, I've changed the field of view. Just make sure the mic is still there, and it is. It feels as though it's under my chin quite a bit rather than in front of my mouth. So yeah, I've changed the field of view to wide now from ultra wide. I've changed the frame rate. We're now in 4K 50, which is still, I wonder if it's 50 frames progressive or interlaced, I don't know. But we're in 4K 50. Base cut has now been turned off. I'm just going to point the camera down a little bit because it's unfair to judge that angle compared to. So yeah, the camera is sticking out quite far from me, further than it would do on the HSU helmet, and that's because I'm wearing the ADX1, quite a protruded chin mount, but the picture is cropped a lot. I think from looking at the back of the screen I prefer the ultra wide, but I'm going to have to try and work out a system of playing this back on my TV rather than just on a computer screen, because that'll give me a much better and clearer idea of the picture colours. I'm not going to be playing around at all with the colours. There's only two settings in this camera, and that is normal and de-cine like. I mentioned in the review, look at that tiger, I love it. Easy tiger. I mentioned in the review of this setup, which just went out live this morning, that it's pointless playing around with de-cine like until DJI bring out the firmware upgrade for 10-bit. It's pointless trying to color grade 8-bit, in my opinion anyway. Some people I know still mess around with it. Of course, basic color correction is fine, but pointless spending hours and hours creating LUTs and everything for 8-bit footage, because you'll never get it spot on anyway. Okay, I'm going to stop again at some stage now. The sun is to the side of me. It's interesting how the camera reads this. I would like the sun ideally behind me at some stage, just to really light up everything evenly in front of me, because I have no doubt I'm getting lens flares, especially in the ultra wide. I noticed that on the original review I did, because the ultra wide lens is the equivalent to 12mm. That's bloody wide. It's a 155 degree field of view. I mean, that's massive. I'm very conscious to point the camera straight ahead, because that does minimize the distortion. If you have the camera pointing down a little bit, you can possibly see there on the horizon that it will be distorted or curved, that horrible original GoPro look. So when your camera's pointing straight ahead like this now, it minimizes the curve hugely. What a gorgeous day anyway. It's a shame I'm out working. I should be out just riding and enjoying this, but I am really. Doesn't matter whether I'm talking or not. Actually, it's like a busman's holiday really, isn't it? Out testing cameras on a motorbike. It should be my switch off, but I still can't help tech talking. Of course, cameras are a passion of mine as well. But okay, I'm going to come to a stop wherever. Ooh, look at all these midges and flies. I have no doubt that my windscreen had just cleaned before I came out on this. Would have got a good splattering. No, that seems to be alright. There were more midges rather than flies, I think. Interesting to see what the sound is like on this. Actually, before I sign off on this, I might as well close the visor and see if there's any difference. There certainly is for me. I notice inside the helmet now it's a lot quieter. But I'm going to increase the gain on my next stop, audio-wise. And I'm going to go back to 4K 60. In fact, I'm not. I am going to increase the gain. I'm going to go to 4K 30 and see if that's any difference as well. I shall stop just in here. I'll tell you the settings again. Well, the new settings once I've dialed them in, and on at the beginning of the next clip. Okay, I'm just going to shut the visor before I tell you what these settings are on this clip. So first of all, I noticed that the audio is over modern on the audio signal indicator on the back of the camera. I've got both the transmitter and the receiver gain set to 0, which is the default anyway if you do buy one of these systems. I've got the lens on the camera set to ultra wide again, and I have the resolution, or the format rather, set to 4K 25. Which is what I've recorded on all my life. Well, HD 25, not even 4K, but always 25 frames. Because I'm from the old school of TV, the dinosaur Montessori, it was always bred into us that the most cinematic look is 25 frames per second. Don't even get me going why we should be using 25 and 50 rather than 30 and 60. Well, I'll tell you briefly. It's because we live in Europe. Even the UK, which isn't part of Europe anymore, should still be using 25 and 50. 30 frames and 60 frames are for the United States of America, formerly known as NTSC as a format. We are still known as PAL. It's an electrical thing, which is going on now. Because we're non-linear, basically because we're not playing our footage out on tapes anymore, and it's not going through an electrical system. We're playing everything on a non-linear system now, so it doesn't have the electricity involved. But for those of you who film bits of your vlogs in your garages and then wonder why your footage strobes, it's because the light you have on in your garage works on 50 Hertz, because you're in a PAL region, i.e. Europe. If you were in America, you'd be on a different frequency of hertz, 60 or 120, hence the frame rate. So if you were shooting a vlog in your garage and you live in Ireland or England or anywhere else in Europe, select your camera to 25 or 50 frames and it will minimize that horrible strobing effect hugely. Of course, there's a few other things you need to bring into consideration, like your shutter speed, but it will take a huge amount of it out just by switching to the correct format. There you go, camera lesson number 1. It's probably the only camera lesson I'm going to get into apart from all of these different tests, because I'm very well aware from the comments on the few camera reviews I've been doing recently with all this fabulous new technology that indeed I am very nerdy, very into it obviously. But I totally get it that it's a little bit too complicated for those of you who are starting out in the world of action cameras. Okay, I'm going to pull down here somewhere safe, like here, and go back to what I think is going to be my favourite setting. Nick, by the way, from Moto UK, commented on my video this morning about this lovely setup and said, Dave, he said, try 4K 60. He said, that's what I prefer. I didn't want to have to respond to Nick with everything I've just told you about frame rates and everything. But because I'm not playing out and mixing and matching other footage from other sources, which was all shot in the UK, I'm going to risk shooting my next few videos at 4K 60. So thanks, Nick, for giving me the kick up the backside I need to experiment with that. It goes against everything I've ever been taught and trained to do as a television cameraman for the last 35 years. But Nick, you could be the straw which broke the camel's back. Thank you very much, my friend. By the way, if you haven't seen Nick's channel, check it out. He really has a fantastic channel. I've learned a lot from Nick. One of the things I want to try just from looking at Nick's channel is moto camping. I'm not going to say any more. Just go over and check it out. Moto UK. Well worth a watch and a subscribe. Okay, I'm recording again. I've got the visor open and the base cut, or it's called low cut actually in the transmitter settings on the DJI Mic. I have that set to off because I am trying to, one of the things I did notice, don't know if I mentioned this already, on the original test of this system again, one of the things I did straight away was just to put the base cut on, because I just thought the road noise, you know, bearing in mind I've used loads of other different types of mics and setups, the road noise is always a little bit too much and I'm constantly trying to minimize that. However, the result on the mic system on this test I did of this system was that the audio was nearly too clean. Like, you couldn't hear any road noise or motorbike rumbles. So that's why now I've just switched that bass cut off again. I think it's been off for most of these tests which are featuring in this little video I'm making now, in the hope that I can introduce a bit of, well, realism, for the want of a better word. I've just angled the camera down a little bit there, and I can see the sound is not over modern as much. I have the transmitter gain set to -6, I have the receiver gain set to -6, and I also have the camera gain, in-camera gain, set to 0. The in-camera gain, for some reason, only I'll put it into reverse gear, Dave, then you might move forwards. Yeah, the in-camera gain on the camera actually is only on a positive scale. It starts from 0 up to +12, I think it is, which is no good really. If you just plug in, if you go down the traditional route of buying a USB-C cable with a 3.5mm socket on to plug a traditional microphone in, which of course you can do, but you will have no control over that system because the audio gain within the camera doesn't go, you can't wind it down basically. It starts at 0, you can only wind it up one way, which is no good. I'm just going to cut I'm not going to cut anything, I'm going to put the visor down just to see if there's a bit of a sound difference there. So I'm noticing that the sound is over modern a little bit, not as much as what it was when I had the audio controls on 0. Okay, riding away. Gorgeous afternoon, really in love with this system. The whole idea of being able to press one button, by the way, on the Osmo Action 3 and everything fires into life within 1 second, unlike the Insta360 RS, which takes 8 seconds, and they still haven't addressed that with a firmware update, which is quite naughty really. Because if you're like me and you only sort of switch the camera on when you've got something to say or you see something you want to talk about, it just saves hours and hours when you're back in the edit, if you shoot that way, by the way. But it's brilliant with this camera because it's literally instant. Press the button and you're literally up and recording before you've got your left hand back on the handlebar. It's just, like, everything about this is brilliant, and the more I go out with this system, the more I'm doing all these little tests like this. I don't even know if these tests will make a video. This is purely for my own purpose, to find the best motovlogging setup. I'll always be shooting 4K from now on, well, basically because you can upload 4K to YouTube. The great thing about 4K as well is that when I'm shooting GVs, which is short for general views in the TV world, of a monument or whatever it is I've gone to visit, or even myself doing a piece to camera, if you're shooting 4K and you make a mistake, or indeed if you want to sort of give yourself a different angle, you can crop in the edit. Sorry, I'm just lifting the visor up here to scratch my nose, very itchy nose. You can crop in the edit without losing too much resolution. Literally just zoom in on your editor, whatever program you're using. So that's the
the real beauty of 4K, apart from the fact it looks so much better than HD. I still can't believe, you know, we can talk about getting 4K and stabilized images and radio mics on an action camera this size. I'm not sure this person's seeing me. Just, yeah, it's okay. It blows me away, you know. And recently the GoPro 11 came out as well, and I know it's divided the nation. Well, it's divided the world of action cameras. You know, which one to go for, the the GoPro or the DJI Mic. Sorry, it's divided the nation which one to go for, the GoPro Hero 11 or the Osmo Action 3, which is what I'm using obviously today. But to have the choice of technology is wonderful. For me, this is a no-brainer. You all know what I have thought of GoPro over the last couple of years. They've not just let me down whilst I've been out motovlogging, they've actually caused me a lot of problems, because I tried to introduce, it was me who was saying, as a director of photography on different shoots, you know, oh no, we can get these wonderful angles rather than hiring in an ARRI camera for £1,000 a day just to get 1 or 2 shots. Why don't we use the GoPro to do this particular driving shot, or where the car goes off the cliff into the water? We'll just put the GoPro on the front of a camera rather than hiring in underwater housings and all of that sort of stuff. So, you know, I was like golden balls when I started introducing this into the workflow for broadcasters. And that didn't last very long, because GoPro, of course, let me down. The freezing, I mean, I shot a wonderful documentary about people who go sea swimming. Most of it was shot underwater, obviously, and I used the GoPro Hero 9, 2 of them, on that, and we ditched it halfway through the shoot because I just lost so much footage we couldn't do again, with disabled swimmers and people who hadn't been in the water in 20 years, people who were nearer the end of life, and we just couldn't ask them to do it again. And all thanks to GoPro. Yeah, I didn't look too clever on that shoot, so I will never take that risk with GoPro again. And that's probably a bit deeper than you were expecting me. I mean, people just talk on the forums about GoPro cameras crashing and freezing and overheating, and then having to stop when you're on a motorbike, taking it out of the media mode. Take your gloves off first, taking the camera out of the media mode by unscrewing stuff, taking the battery out of the camera, putting the battery back in, putting it back in the media mode, firing it up, and then the screen tells you that your files are corrupted and you've lost whatever you've shot that day. So no thanks, GoPro. You're absolutely appalling company to deal with. I've written to you nicely, I've written to you in anger and in haste and in desperation, and still that old copy and paste message which you send to everybody. Are you using the correct cards? Did you format your card? Did you check your battery was fully charged? What operating temperatures were you in? Oh, stop. Don't give me that bullshit, GoPro. So I'm delighted that companies like DJI and Insta360 have come along to basically start snapping at GoPro's heels. They deserve everything they get. Great scenery, great light, and the light is behind me actually. Well, nearly behind me. It'll do. Still very oversaturated looking on the screen. I think it is just the screen, because I would have noticed, because I still shot in this normal colour profile on recent video that I have made with this camera. I'm not sure if that video has actually been out yet on YouTube, because I don't know where this video is going to go, if at all, in my YouTube lineup, so I'm not even going to mention what video I've just been doing. Regardless, to say, I'm very excited about it. Okay, back to the job in hand. Nearly home. What a gorgeous afternoon. It's a Saturday afternoon here, coming in towards the end of September. I suspect if this does make my playlist, this video, I shall be getting it out sooner rather than later, because it's quite topical, all of this at the minute, and with all of the new camera releases, everybody's looking for the information now. The other thing I should tease you with is that I have the new Insta360 X3, and I've already, as you well know if you've been following me for a while, been the user of the original Insta360 and then the X2. Now I have the X3, and let me just tell you now, Insta360, I'm not sponsored by them or anything, but they did send me a pre-production model of the X3. Now, if you look at that review, I also said what I didn't like as well, even though it was pre-production, and Insta360 assured me that all of the problems I found would be fixed on release. Well, they sent me, as my disclaimer, they sent me an X3, the same model all of you guys will be buying, and I only received that a week ago, and honest to God, everything they said they would fix, they have fixed. The software is obviously totally updated and reliable. The camera is incredible, the Insta360 X3. So I honestly am so excited about this as a cameraman, to think that I can capture all of my tours, all of my trips, you know, from the two cameras. So I will have the X3 sitting there for my shot looking back at me, and anything else I need to pick out along the route without the windscreen in, so to speak. And obviously I'll be sticking with this system on my chin as well. But between the two cameras, I just think, well, what a setup. Before I sign off, because I am nearly home, I'll be doing a separate video actually on how to mount the Insta360 X3 and how to achieve all the angles I get, you know, whilst you're riding along on a motorbike looking like there's a drone following you. I did a video a couple of years ago which was a huge hit amongst the viewers. In fact, I think it's one of my biggest ranking videos, so it's about time for an update, because I have a few more tricks and tips under my sleeve, and no better camera to show you that with on the X3. Now there's a van right up behind me, so make sure I pull in the middle of the road so you can't overtake me as I'm turning right. And that's it, folks. You know who I am at this stage, Dave Perry, Willie Good TV. Thanks a million for tuning in. If you're not a subscriber to this channel, please become one. Look at that pretty little view there, and that pretty little cottage it was. And yeah, thanks a lot for coming along for the ride. Really appreciate, you know, having somebody to spread my knowledge with. We'll talk soon. Over and out. Cheers.
Okay, I hope you haven't switched off. I don't blame you if you did, but obviously you're still here if you're watching this. So my findings are, again, thanks to Nick at Moto UK for really taming the dinosaur. So I'm now going to be shooting my next few videos in 4K 60. I'm going to be using the ultra-wide viewing angle. I just thought that was stunningly beautiful, even on a BMW sitting upright, as well as it being great for the Aprilia RS660 leaning forward. You still get, you know, the lovely cockpit in shot. I'll be keeping the colour in normal until DJI come out with the upgrade for the 10-bit, like I mentioned. Then I'll start messing around with Cine-like and the log mode. Can't even get my words out. But that's when I'll start experimenting with colour grading. The image stabilization is incredible in this camera, much better than GoPro. Now, I haven't just turned into being a big GoPro hater. They've just frustrated me for years. You know, I don't want to sort of be a basher here towards GoPro, because it was GoPro really who were the first off the blocks with all of this sort of stuff as well. And they really did create what we have today, basically. And other companies like DJI and Insta360 have come along as a result of GoPro inventing it in the first place. So I'm seriously not bashing GoPro. I'm just giving you my thoughts on how this new technology compares to them. What was the other thing I wanted to talk about? Yes, one huge finding, which I was really thrilled about, is the way that the aperture, I don't know if you noticed it in a few of those clips, the aperture correction, because everything is on auto. I don't know if I mentioned that. Obviously when you're riding a motorbike you can't stop and change your shutter speed or your aperture, so just stick it all on auto, let the camera do the work for you. And so I was really thrilled on the back of that as to how well it was handling the auto exposure when I was coming out of the darker areas into the sunshine. It would correct really quickly, but really smooth. Now, I mentioned this in the actual full review I did of this camera, because some other action cameras will basically white out for a second whilst it sort of adjusts. So all in all, delighted with the audio. The sweet spot for me, I've found, is -8 on the transmitter settings, -8 on the receiver settings, and keep the camera audio set to 0. Now, obviously, that's for my voice, that's for my projection. It might change for your voice. Obviously, it's all individual, this. And indeed, you might not even like some of the settings I've chosen. You might like some of the other things that I was experimenting with. Once again, thanks a million for tuning in. If you have watched right up until now, then you are seriously as nerdy and as techie as I am. But don't worry, Saturday morning, 8 o'clock, normal service shall be resumed. Really appreciate you tuning in, folks. Thanks a million. Bye for now.